How many dreams have you buried because you were waiting for the perfect time? How many times have you told yourself, "I'll start when I'm ready," only to realize that moment never really came? Maybe it's that project you've been planning for years. Maybe it's a vision you keep seeing every night before you sleep, but every morning it fades beneath the weight of doubt. You tell yourself you're not ready yet, that you need more time, more clarity, more skill. But what if that very thought is the reason you've stayed stuck for so long? What if perfection isn't your highest standard, but the invisible chain holding you down? You see, perfection wears a beautiful mask. It whispers that it only wants the best for you, that it's protecting you from mistakes, from embarrassment, from failure. But underneath that comforting voice lies something darker: fear. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of starting small, the fear of being judged. And the cruelest part, you don't even realize it's fear. You call it preparation, you call it patience, you call it high standards. But in truth, it's hesitation dressed as discipline. And that hesitation quietly robs you of your potential. Day by day, moment by moment. There's a quiet kind of pain that comes from doing nothing. The kind that doesn't scream or shout, but lingers in your chest when you realize another day has passed and you still haven't taken the step you promised yourself you would. You scroll through your phone, watching others live the life you dream of, people who seem less prepared, less talented, but somehow ahead of you. And deep down, you know it's not because they're better. It's because they started. While you were perfecting your plan, they were building theirs. While you were fixing the smallest details, they were creating imperfect momentum. While you were waiting for permission from the world, they gave permission to themselves. That's the trap of perfection. It convinces you that waiting is wisdom. But in reality, waiting is the slow death of progress. Think about it. How many times have you said, "I'll start next week"? How many times have you rewritten that same plan, adjusted that same idea, or edited that same project until it lost the spark it once had? You're not lazy. You're not lost. You're just scared to be seen in your unfinished form. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that mistakes mean failure. But the truth is, mistakes mean movement. Mistakes mean growth. They mean you're in the process of becoming. It's strange, isn't it? We admire progress when we see it in others, yet we demand perfection from ourselves. We look at successful people and think they had everything figured out. But behind every success story lies a mountain of imperfection, drafts that never made sense, ideas that failed, and countless days of uncertainty. No one ever started perfectly. They started brave. And bravery, not perfection, is what builds greatness. If you look closely, perfection is not your friend. It's your comfort zone disguised as ambition. It tells you to prepare a little more, learn a little more, think a little longer. It convinces you that your time will come when everything aligns perfectly. But that time never comes, because perfection has no finish line. The closer you get, the farther it moves. And one day, you wake up realizing that all those hours you spent waiting were actually hours you could have spent growing. That's the heartbreaking part. You don't lose to failure. You lose to hesitation. Imagine what you could have built by now if you hadn't waited for the perfect start. Imagine the person you could have become if you had just trusted your first imperfect step. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you already know this. You feel the pull every time you get an idea that excites you. Every time your heart races with the thought of doing something bold. That spark? That's your true self trying to break free from perfection's grip. But every time you ignore it, it dims a little more. Not because it's gone, but because you've convinced yourself it's not the right time yet. Here's the truth: there is no right time. There is only time wasted and time used. You might think you're protecting your dream by waiting until it's perfect, but in reality, you're suffocating it. Dreams need movement. They need action to breathe. They grow when you take risks, when you learn, when you fail, when you try again. Without motion, they die quietly in the corners of your mind, replaced by excuses that sound logical but feel hollow. I'll start when I have more money. I'll begin when I'm more confident. I'll do it when I have more time. These are not reasons, they are chains. And perfection is the lock that keeps them tight. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't need to know every step. You only need to start. The truth is, clarity doesn't come before action. It comes after it. Every step forward reveals the next one. Every attempt teaches you something new. That's how growth works, not through flawless preparation, but through courageous execution. The people you admire didn't begin with certainty. They began with faith. They believed in progress more than perfection. They knew that the only way to master something is to first be terrible at it. And that's where most people lose, not because they lack ability, but because they can't stand being imperfect in public. Think about that for a moment. How many people are trapped in lives that feel too small for them? Not because they can't do better, but because they're too afraid to start badly. How many ideas, inventions, books, and movements never came to life because someone kept editing the first draft, waiting for perfection? It's heartbreaking. Because perfection doesn't just kill progress, it kills potential. It stops the world from seeing what only you can bring. And that's the real loss, not what you failed to do, but what you never dared to try. You weren't born to be flawless. You were born to evolve. Every great achiever, every visionary, every builder who ever changed the world, they all started with flaws. They learned by doing, not by waiting. The difference between where you are and where you want to be isn't talent or timing. It's the willingness to take that first imperfect step. And if you truly want to live a life that matters, if you truly want to fulfill your purpose, then you have to let go of this illusion of perfection. Because the cost of holding on is far greater than the fear of letting go. Perfection is safe, but progress is alive. Perfection keeps you comfortable, but progress makes you grow. Perfection feels like control, but it's actually fear disguised as order. And the saddest truth is that while you're waiting to be perfect, your future self is waiting for you to begin. So ask yourself this: are you willing to let years pass while you perfect something that doesn't even exist yet? Or are you ready to step into the messiness of growth where real change begins? The world doesn't reward those who plan forever. It rewards those who dare, who move, who learn as they go. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next step. Every legend, every master, every success story started the same way: uncertain, imperfect, and afraid. But they chose movement over perfection, and that choice changed everything. The same choice is waiting for you. Not tomorrow, not when things calm down, not when you feel ready. Now, because every moment you delay is another moment you surrender to fear disguised as perfection. So, what's the reward for choosing progress over perfection? Freedom. The freedom to grow, to fail, to learn, to become. The peace of finally seeing yourself move forward instead of standing still. The joy of realizing that your worth isn't measured by flawlessness, but by courage. That's the truth perfection doesn't want you to know. Once you start, you'll realize you never needed to be perfect to make progress. You just needed to begin. And if you stay till the end of this message, you'll discover how to break that illusion completely. How to shift your mind from waiting to acting, from fearing to creating, from dreaming to doing. Because deep down, you already have everything you need to start. The only thing standing in your way is the lie that you're not ready. But you are. You always were. You've been taught your whole life to aim for perfection, to get it right the first time, to plan everything, to avoid mistakes at all costs. But here's the truth: no one told you. Perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist. It never has. It's not a destination you can reach. It's a moving target that keeps shifting the closer you get. And that's why so many people spend their entire lives chasing it, chasing something that can never be caught. Think about it. Every time you get close to finishing something, a project, a dream, a decision, your mind whispers, "It's not good enough yet. Wait. Fix a little more. Just one more change." You listen, because it sounds reasonable. You tell yourself you're improving it. You tell yourself it'll be worth it when it's perfect. But what's really happening is this: your fear has learned how to speak your language. It doesn't shout anymore. It negotiates. It convinces you that hesitation is maturity, that delay is discipline. But the truth is, it's not. It's fear wearing a professional suit. You call it wanting the best, but in reality, you're avoiding the risk of being seen as not enough. You're afraid of criticism, of rejection, of failure. You think that by waiting for perfection, you're protecting yourself. But what you're really protecting yourself from is growth. Because growth only happens in motion. It happens when you fall, when you adjust, when you rise again. Every step you take reveals something new. But when you wait for perfection, you trap yourself in stillness, and nothing grows there. You can't improve what doesn't exist. You can't fix something that was never started. And that's the cruel trick of perfection. It makes you believe you're improving while keeping you stuck in the same place. You rewrite, you rethink, you replan. But deep down, you know you're just avoiding the first imperfect step. Because that step feels vulnerable. It feels raw. It exposes you. But that's exactly where life begins, in the uncomfortable, unpolished, uncertain places. Every great story began in imperfection. The most successful people in the world didn't begin with confidence, they began with courage. They made things that didn't work. They faced criticism. They failed publicly. But instead of chasing perfection, they chased progress. Because progress is real. Progress is measurable. Progress compounds. And perfection? It's just a mirage that keeps you walking in circles. The illusion of perfection is one of the most powerful traps your mind can create. It tells you, once I reach this level, then I'll start. Once I feel confident, then I'll speak. Once everything is lined up, then I'll move. But the moment you get there, the line moves. Suddenly, you see something else that needs fixing. Another reason to wait. It never ends. And before you know it, years have passed, not because you failed, but because you never started. Here's the reality most people never face. Perfection isn't a standard, it's a shield. A shield you hold up to protect yourself from judgment. But what you don't realize is that shield also blocks your growth. It keeps you safe from pain, yes, but it also keeps you safe from purpose, from progress, from potential. Every time you hide behind perfection, you trade your future for comfort. And comfort might feel good for a while, but it quietly erases your dreams one day at a time. You weren't meant to be flawless. You were meant to evolve. Perfection freezes you in one place, but evolution demands motion. Every failure, every misstep, every imperfection is a lesson disguised as loss. You don't learn by being perfect. You learn by being real. And when you start to understand that, perfection loses its power over you. You stop fearing mistakes because you realize mistakes are just proof that you're trying. And maybe right now, you're sitting there thinking, but I don't want to fail. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to start something that doesn't work. But that's exactly how every creator, every builder, every dreamer once felt. The difference between them and everyone else is simple. They decided to move anyway. They decided that progress, even if messy, is worth more than perfection that never begins. Perfection feels safe, but safety doesn't change your life. Safety doesn't fulfill your purpose. Safety doesn't create anything that lasts. What creates change is momentum, even when it's clumsy, even when it's uncertain, even when it's uncomfortable, because motion leads to mastery. Every expert was once a beginner who refused to wait for perfect. You have to stop believing that perfection equals success. It doesn't. Progress equals success. Growth equals success. Learning, improving, adjusting, that's what greatness is made of. Perfection is static. Progress is alive. And as long as you're alive, you're meant to move. The truth is, perfection is an illusion created by comparison. You look at someone's finished masterpiece and forget that they started in chaos too. You see the highlight reel, not the behind-the-scenes struggle. You see the results, not the rejections. You see their confidence, not their countless nights of doubt. And you tell yourself, I'll start when I'm that good. But they only became that good because they started when they weren't. So, what's holding you back? What's really stopping you from taking that first imperfect step? It's not the world. It's not the timing. It's not the lack of opportunity. It's the lie of perfection, the voice that says you need to be more before you begin. But the truth is, you become more by beginning. That's the paradox most people never see. You don't get ready to start. You start to get ready. Let that sink in for a moment. You don't wait for confidence. You build it by doing. You don't wait for clarity. You find it through action. You don't wait for the perfect moment. You create it by showing up. Perfection keeps you waiting for a version of yourself that doesn't exist yet. Progress helps you become that version step by step. So the next time you catch yourself waiting for everything to be perfect, stop. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Because that fear isn't warning you of danger. It's revealing your edge, the place where growth is possible. That's where you need to go. That's where you'll find your real power. You don't need to destroy perfection. You just need to see it for what it is, a mask. A mask your fear wears to look like logic. Once you recognize that, it loses its hold. You'll start to realize that the imperfections you're hiding from are the very things that make your journey worth watching, your story worth telling, your life worth living. Perfection tells you to wait until you're ready. But progress whispers, start now and you'll become ready on the way. And maybe, just maybe, that's all you ever needed. Permission to be imperfect, to begin without knowing, to move even when it feels uncomfortable. Because in that movement lies everything perfection promised but could never deliver: growth, confidence, fulfillment, and the quiet peace of knowing you didn't wait your life away. Keep listening, because what comes next will show you exactly how people who once felt just like you, uncertain, afraid, unready, broke free from this illusion and built unstoppable momentum. It's not about perfection. It's about power, the power that comes from choosing progress every single day. You know what separates those who make progress from those who never move? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even timing. It's decision. The decision to act, even when the path isn't clear. The decision to trust motion more than motivation. And that's what one man understood better than almost anyone else, a man who spent decades studying the difference between those who only dream and those who actually do. He discovered something simple but world-changing. Perfection kills desire, and hesitation kills opportunity. And yet, action, even imperfect action, transforms ordinary people into unstoppable forces. That man was Napoleon Hill. Long before social media, before self-improvement became a trend, Hill dedicated over 20 years of his life to studying more than 500 of the most successful people in the world, from inventors to entrepreneurs to leaders who built empires out of nothing. He wanted to understand why some people kept moving towards success, while others spent their lives standing still. What he found was both profound and unsettling. Success had nothing to do with perfection, and everything to do with decision. Hill realized that people fail not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they never make up their minds to act. They keep preparing, planning, polishing, convincing themselves they're getting ready, when all they're doing is delaying. In his words, do not wait. The time will never be just right. He wasn't offering motivation. He was exposing a truth that most people spend their entire lives running from. Think about that for a second. The time will never be just right. That's not a poetic line, it's a reality check. If you're waiting for the perfect time to begin, you're waiting for something that doesn't exist. Every perfect moment you imagine is just another excuse your mind builds to protect you from discomfort. Because comfort is what kills greatness. Hill observed that the most successful people he studied shared one trait in common: decisive action. They didn't wait to have everything figured out. They didn't wait for the stars to align. They didn't wait to feel ready. They acted with faith, with courage, with persistence. They understood something most people never do. Clarity is the reward of action, not the requirement for it. He saw that those who took action, even small, uncertain, imperfect steps, built momentum. And momentum is everything. It's the invisible force that multiplies effort, the spark that turns desire into direction. Because once you start, life starts moving with you. Doors open, opportunities appear, confidence grows. You don't find strength before the journey, you find it because of the journey. Hill believed that waiting for perfection was just another form of fear. Fear dressed up in logic, fear disguised as caution. And the longer you entertain it, the stronger it becomes. That's why so many people spend their whole lives getting ready, studying, preparing, imagining, but never actually doing. They're trapped in a cycle of false progress, mistaking preparation for movement. But preparation without execution is still paralysis. You might think you need more knowledge, more skills, more certainty before you start. But according to Hill, success doesn't come from knowing everything, it comes from using what you already know. He said, action is the real measure of intelligence, because it's not about how much you understand, it's about what you apply. Every great achievement begins not with knowing, but with doing. He also discovered something powerful about the human mind. The longer you delay action, the weaker your desire becomes. Every time you postpone what you know you should do, you train your mind to associate inaction with safety. You start confusing comfort with control. And soon, your dream becomes just another thought you visit from time to time, not something you live for. Hill saw this pattern everywhere. People with great ideas, smart, capable, passionate, who could have changed the world, but didn't. Not because they failed, but because they never began. They waited for certainty. They waited for validation. They waited for the perfect moment. And in that waiting, their fire slowly went out. He called this the death of desire through doubt. A slow, invisible erosion of belief, the kind that kills dreams quietly, without anyone noticing. But here's the part that changes everything. He also discovered that the moment you take action, no matter how small, that desire reignites. The moment you move, fear begins to lose its power. Because fear feeds on stillness, it can't survive in motion. That's why the first step is always the hardest, not because it's complicated, but because it's the moment you stop thinking and start becoming. Hill's entire philosophy can be summed up in one idea. Success begins where excuses end. Once you stop waiting for the perfect time, once you stop blaming circumstances, once you stop letting fear disguise itself as logic, that's when progress starts. Not in the future, not someday, now. The most beautiful part of Hill's discovery is that progress doesn't demand perfection. It rewards persistence. Every small, consistent step creates invisible momentum. And that momentum compounds until one day, you realize you've become the person you used to dream about. That's why Hill taught that faith and action are inseparable. Faith isn't just believing things will work out. It's believing they'll work out because you'll make them work out. It's trusting yourself enough to move even when the path isn't clear. That's real confidence, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move despite it. And maybe that's what you've been missing, not motivation, but motion. Motivation fades. Motion builds. Once you begin, even imperfectly, your mind shifts from wishing to working. You stop waiting for a sign and become the sign yourself. That's how people transform their lives, not by aiming for perfect outcomes, but by refusing to stand still. Every success story begins with a decision, a moment when someone said, "I'm done waiting." That's it. Not a perfect plan, not a flawless strategy, just a decision to begin, no matter what. And that decision changes everything. Because once you start, the world responds. Life rewards those who dare to act. So if you've been stuck, paralyzed by the illusion of perfection, take this truth with you. The time will never be just right, and that's exactly why you must start now. You'll never feel fully ready, and that's okay. No one ever does. Readiness isn't a feeling, it's a result of action. Every step you take builds the readiness you've been waiting for. That's what Napoleon Hill wanted the world to understand. That's the secret behind every dream that ever came to life. You don't need perfection to progress. You need courage. You need commitment. You need to move, even when your hands shake and your voice trembles, because progress doesn't begin when you're confident. It begins when you're willing. And once you start, something extraordinary happens. Life begins to meet you halfway. The people you need appear. The lessons you need unfold. The confidence you crave grows within you. But none of it happens until you take that first imperfect step. Because that step, the one you keep avoiding, is where your future begins. Keep going. Because now you know what Hill knew. Perfection was never your path, progress was.